when you're in a practice at setting boundaries, it's like having a house with no walls around it and then get constantly deeply offended by people wading through and stepping on your carpets with dirty boots. It makes no sense, right? But if you don't set clear boundaries, people have no idea of where the limit is of what they can ask of you, how they should talk to you, and how they can behave towards you. We all grow up with a set of rules to what is expected of us, when we all have different rules depending on our different childhoods, right? Some of us don't even have any rules. So it makes total sense that you need to make it clear to people what's acceptable for you and what is not. And what you have decided are the consequences if people overstep your boundaries. You cannot expect people to have the same set of rules you have, and nor can you expect them to guess what your set of rules are. Younger vets, where they get put off by something the client is saying. So we have here a neutral circumstance where the client says, you don't know what you're doing. And this could be whatever triggered him to say that. He says this thing. And if you're having a bad day, or you're not that experienced yet, or for some reason you're in a bad run, your brain might generalize this thing that the client has told you. And your brain just throws at you like, clients don't trust me. They don't think they can trust me. And from this thought you had about this thing that the client said to you, you start feeling really insecure. And feeling insecure, like your body posture is going to change, your facial expression is going to change, and your brain is just going to start acting from this feeling of insecure. So you might start second guessing everything you do in your head, like, am I doing the right thing? You might keep asking others for help, or second guessing and having like second opinions from others. And you might be unwilling to try things that you're not completely confident doing because you don't want the clients to see you feeling insecure. And you don't speak with confidence when you speak to the client because you're feeling insecure. And in this case, you're kind of getting the result that you don't really trust yourself and you don't inspire trust in the client. So we're literally creating a self-fulfilling prophecy when we do this. And I can tell you that what the client says is completely neutral, and you can choose whatever thought you want to have about it. Because, for example, I have like a ton of years of experience now. So simply, not because I'm better than anybody else, but just because I've been doing it for so many years. If a client says to me, you don't know what you're doing, I'm like, yeah, I do. What are you talking about? And then I don't run this whole model of insecurity just because of the baggage of years I've had. So what we can have a look at is like the model that the client is having, because when we see this, when the client says something about us, we immediately, everything is then about us. And we think that the client is thinking a lot about us, and the client is like having all these opinions about us, and we just completely are in our own brains. When in reality, when we look at the client's model is like, okay, so the vet is looking at my pets, and he's taken several minutes without offering a diagnosis. And for some reason, this client is a bit impatient, and he's thinking from this circumstance, I want to know what's wrong now, right? I see this screaming cat, and he feels frustrated because he wants it to be happening now, and it's not happening. And then he feels frustrated, and he then in his head, he's comparing with other vets. Maybe he's thinking of another time he brought his dog in and it was like super simple. Maybe it was like a little wound or something that he just got given a cream in 5 minutes. Maybe he's getting increasingly worried about what's wrong because you seem to be taking a long time to him, and he gets increasingly anxious. And then he's basically blaming the vet for how he's feeling. The client is never aware of the model they're running, right? They're just kind of in their own head doing their own thing, and they're not thinking about you, about what you're thinking. But you can be aware of your own model. Now you know this, and you could be in control of that. Offer you all kind of thoughts, and there's going to be like no filter, and you need to know that you can choose which thoughts you want to keep, and there's not one simple truth. And how do we know this? When you have a road traffic accident and the officer goes out to get witness statements, like you can have 20 people there and they will get 20 different like witness statements, because all the people have different thoughts about what happened, and they literally think that what they're thinking about the accident is just clear fact that they're giving the officer, which can obviously not be true, because if like a lot of different people tell different things about what happened, like there is no one universal truth. Like they all have a different story. I think of veterinarians and vet nurses as tigers that have a ton of education, a ton of experience, and a lot of accomplishments under their belts, but they see, or you see yourselves as kittens. Like, you don't realize what you're worth and how much you actually know. Our brains are always focusing on the negative. It's always focusing on what we may be doing wrong, discounting obviously what we do right, because what would be the purpose in that? That's not going to save you from the lion. You need to always be focusing what is not going right. What am I doing wrong? It makes us compare ourselves to others. We find everyone better than ourselves often, no? And that stops us from tapping into our own potential and trust our own experience and our own knowledge, because we're so focused on others probably being better than us and doubting brain on what we are worth. The only way to do it, and this I've actually learned through coaching, because we are forced to evaluate ourselves a lot, and now I do it as a vet as well, is evaluating the consults, evaluating surgeries, we tend to evaluate when things don't work well, when things go wrong. That's when then the clinic go, oh, let's do an audit, what went wrong? But the problem is, if you evaluate yourself like this, your brain is going to go into fight and flight, and you'll be very not very receptive to feedback, and you're just going to take any feedback like something has gone horribly wrong. So you always want to focus your brain on what you've done well first. So I would, for example, let's say you've done an operation. Let's say a young vet is learning bit space, for example, and you're like fumbling around for hours and you find an ovary and then you can't cut the ligament. And in the end, another vet has to come in and you're like beating yourself up. So what you want to do, like, well, first of all, you managed to get into the abdomen. You didn't kill the dog. And you actually found one ovary. So you want to like focus on what went well. And then you can say, okay, so what could I then do next time to then continue and not freak out over all the bleeding and this ligament that wouldn't go anywhere. And then you want to really celebrate what you do well as well. So for me, I talk about the ovary and the bits because that was my big thing when I was learning. I think it took me a year to be able to find the ovary and pick it out of the bloody dog. And I definitely celebrated whenever I managed to do it without help. So I think that's really important as well. So you evaluate, what did I do right? You celebrate it. You just show your brain, look, I'm not as bad. I can do this. And then obviously you find, okay, so what didn't work? Well, what can we do different next time? To use the right wording when you talk about yourself and you have this inner thoughts, like the difference between wanting something and needing something. If you feel as a professional that you need to become a better professional, that implies that you're not good enough already. And this puts you in a vulnerable situation where you're dependent on outside circumstances in order to feel good about yourself. Like, you need to do more. You have to keep going, right? If you want to become even better at something, it implies that you're already good enough as you are, but you want to work towards a goal to become better at something like surgeries, catheter, communication with client, whatever it is, in order to grow as a human, as a professional, and to serve pets and the owners like even better.